You keep bluffing, you've got nothing. I'll keep hustling.
We're going to be getting into Bitcoin. We're going to be having a look at several things. Now, first of all, I'm going to give you my thoughts and opinions and all that kind of stuff in the usual way that I would normally do. And then, of course, we're going to be taking a look at what, the kind of narrative that is in the space. I'm not going to be looking at one or two influences specifically, but we'll just be taking a look at the general message that is being put on out there. And then I'm going to top it all off with my thoughts and, final summary on essentially what this means to me as a retail investor. As I get into this, so if you find it useful and informative, hit the like button. I really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, then why not go ahead and subscribe? Tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. And if you haven't yet joined us in Discord, why not go ahead and check it out? Links in the description down below. It's a fantastic community talking crypto 24/7. It's completely free, and I don't think you'll be disappointed by what you find down there. So why not go ahead and check it out? Okay, guys, let's waste no more time and let's get right into kind of what we're seeing in the crypto space right now. So obviously here we have YouTube, a series of videos here. I'm not really going to focus in on these channels specifically, but just kind of the messages that are being put out, right? So everyone's lying. A bigger crash is coming, apparently. Although if I were to analyze everyone, I would say the majority are saying that there's a big crash coming. I don't think everyone's lying. I think there's a few people, such as myself, that do not align to this narrative 100%. I think that we are pulling back down. I don't think we're going down to this colossal collapse, though. And I think essentially, when they say everyone's lying, I think as everyone in the sense of maybe the people who are telling you that it's going to have these, catastrophic collapses are probably the ones that are lying. But nonetheless, let's take a look. We've got urgent Bitcoin warning. Bigger crashes coming soon. Ooh, scary stuff, right? So fear sells. Chico Crypto there. Maybe he's in good health. I don't really watch the channel, but hopefully he's doing all right. Bigger crashes coming. 𝗷𝗂𝗪's last warning, right? And obviously they have to put the face on there. They have to kind of do these things, get a little bit of a fear out in the space. These are all relatively new videos as well, right? We've got 5 days old, 17 hours old, 3 days old, 9 days old down here. Bigger crashes coming. I'm not sure how soon these are, but nonetheless, they are there. Bigger crashes coming. Collapsing down. Investing made simple. And the story is quite familiar. You come on down here. Admittedly, I've just searched in. What have I searched for here? Can't even actually remember what I searched for. I think it was like Bitcoin crash or something like that. But essentially, worst ever crash coming. This is quite scary stuff, right? This is the stuff that is being plagued across YouTube, but it's the same on Twitter. It's the same across most social medias. And what is interesting about this is, there's this narrative that basically you're going down to this catastrophic event. Now, a lot of this is then pinned on recession, stock markets collapsing, as the 2008 financial crisis. But we do have to reflect on the fact that crypto has never experienced this before, which means we don't actually know how crypto is going to, fare in such a scenario, right? We have an idea that it will react somewhat similar to the stock market, but that might not necessarily be the truth. The truth of the matter is it might react more maybe like the gold market or the silver market, or maybe it'll act completely different to all of that because it's a completely different industry and a whole different subset of assets, right? And you've got to bear in mind why Bitcoin was created in the first place. It was because of the 2008 financial crash that Bitcoin was created. And, it's power to the people rather than to the few elites that are kind of, running the show. So it'd be interesting to kind of see how it plays out. Now, I don't align to this narrative, as many of you guys will know already from the channel. And I base this on the facts of, the data in the charts, right? I take a look at all of the data, not just from, price action on the chart side, but also from Glassnode data and the background of everything that's going on there. Now, I'm going to actually just make this a little bit bigger so we can see a bigger view of my overall and overarching breakdown of the entire crypto market here, Bitcoin's market over the previous cycles, right? All the way down here from the 2013 highs and all that. And I've been through this a dozen times already. I'm not going to spend too much time here talking about this particular model, but you kind of see the idea that we have these bottoms, right, as highlighted with these circles. Now, This one actually is over there. I don't know what it's doing at that side. So essentially here you have this, right? And this is the 86% bear market low. It was about 413 days from the all-time high to that bear market low. We had an 84% bear market low. This was 364 days basically from the all-time high to that bear market low. We had a 72% crash here for COVID. And then of course right now I'm projecting out that the Bitcoin bear market bottom, if you will, comes in here at just 23,000. A little bit lower than that actually. It's not exactly 23,000 to the penny or anything like that, but I would expect it to be around that zone, right? Anywhere really between 20 and 23 seems to be a most logical area, and emphasis on it's the logical area, okay, for the sentiment of the space at the point of recording this video, right? So obviously Bitcoin halving is about 600 and probably 40 or 50 days away now. That has not been updated in terms of the number of days, but essentially you can kind of see here there's a line in the sand. It's March 2024 for the Bitcoin halving event, and obviously we had one just up here as well after this pandemic crash. We shall note, by the way, guys, Bitcoin's bull run started in January of 2019. It wasn't the 2020 Bitcoin halving that started its bull run. It just so happens that that crash there makes it feel that that's where things started, but it isn't actually anything to do with the Bitcoin halving. I think that's less and less important now. But let's focus in on a couple of things, right? So obviously, with all of this kind of, if that's going to load, yeah, bigger crash is what I put in there. I didn't even put Bitcoin, just bigger crash, and all this noise comes up. But essentially, you know, what we're talking about here is you know, all this kind of fear that's creeping into the space. So much fear and so many last warnings, right? Last warning from 𝗷𝗠𝗪, for example. Now, what I want to talk about is vidIQ's data. Now, for those who don't know, people who run YouTube channels, they generally use vidIQ as a bit of a gauge on how much search volume goes through a search term, for example. And obviously here you can see how many people are doing videos on a very specific subject. So here we got high competition, very high competition for this particular phrase, which means there's a lot of people covering this big crash that's coming, right? And therefore, if I were to do a video on this big crash, for example, I'm not going to get too much traction with it, right? So I wouldn't do that. So that's kind of what this is showing us. It's showing us that essentially this search term for Bitcoin crashing, this big crash, is basically getting populated really heavily. And there's a lot of people basically trying to cover this. And it's rather because there's search volume for it. People are really scared. They're worried about it. But then I come back to the chart and I have to ask you a couple of questions here. And this isn't something that I'm going to answer for you. This is something you're going to have to answer for yourself, right? If there is this big colossal crash coming and everyone knows about it, right? Because, you know, YouTube is plagued with so much noise in the space, right? So many people are talking about it. Why is it taking so long? Why is it that we've had nothing more than a sideways trade for a couple of weeks? Why have we had this really stagnant, really slow trading movements for Bitcoin, right? Considering it's urgent news, urgent, Bitcoin's falling down, urgent, we're going down to $12,000 or less. So urgent that the price action doesn't give a shit. Right, now this is important to understand, right? Because I'm taking a purely logical approach to it, as I do most things. And we have to think, if big money, and there's MicroStrategy, for example, and there's a whole host of other institutional players buying up Bitcoin. We can see this from Glassnode data, and we'll get into that in a moment. You know, they're not selling. So if this big crash is coming and it's urgent, the only people that are expected to sell are the retail investors. That's how I'm looking at this, right? Otherwise, this would have already collapsed down, right? Why wait for this to pull back down further before selling, right? If you're an institutional player, right? You're going to want to make sure you're out of this market. There's an absolute shitstorm coming. We're going down to like $12,000. I don't want to be holding this at what are we trading at? $28,000 at the point of recording this video. I'm going to get out of this market and then I'll buy back later, right? You know, they're not emotional about it. They're going to be taking a very logical approach, as I am right now, and they would only be looking at accumulating when they think there's value to the upside to be had, and they would be selling if they think there's value to be had at buying it later. So the fact that we've just been going sideways for a large period of time makes me question whether this crash is actually coming. Okay, I do think we are likely to pull back down, and I think that's going to be on the back of the retail investors being scared and basically being shaken out of the market, as we historically talk about all the time when we talk about retail investors being shaken out of the space, right? Now, altcoins are a different bag. They're a different beast altogether, right? They're highly volatile. We can see Bitcoin dominance spiking up as altcoins are bleeding out heavily, right? Altcoins are bleeding hard, but Bitcoin is not. So the people who are expected to sell Bitcoin are going to be the retail investors. They're the ones who are going to succumb to the fear that the price is going to fall back down. And again, this is something, if I come over to my other chart here, and we talk about a fair amount. If I bring up the 8 hour as a part of my video that I did this morning on the technical side of Bitcoin, we can see, we are looking at these low areas, right? And again, this is just mapping the psychology of the traders who are currently here actively moving the price of Bitcoin, right? Supply and demand and all of that. And essentially, we have that potential theoretical move up first towards $33,000, but then an eventual pullback down to 22,900 approximately, right? We actually have a bit of a zone in here as well. So like I said, anywhere really between 20 and 23 seems to be pretty much the place that I'm kind of leaning towards. And we have got that higher end of about 25. I don't think that's going to be likely to hold. I think we're going to go down lower than that. But essentially, once this starts slipping down, we are going to start to see retail investors get shaken out, right? And you're going to see accumulation occur. And that accumulation is going to be on the backs of the retail investor, okay? So understand that if this crash from just a purely logical perspective was coming, and it is so urgent that, you must be prepared for it, then, why is it taking so long? Because, there are a significant number of people who hold over 1,000 BTC. So let's get into that. So let's jump up over into, let's jump on up into the Glassnode data here, right? So in the Glassnode data, we'll just start things on our exchange balance. So basically, this is the amount of Bitcoin on exchanges. This did spike up briefly. It came back down. It's starting to spike up again a little bit. So basically, this has been decreasing for quite some time. If we actually take a look at March 2020, you can see it peaked up here, and it's just been nothing but decrease. We had the multi-year lows. We see a little bit of fluctuation here, but it's absolutely nothing in comparison to what things were like back in May of 2021. Okay, so we know that we're significantly lower than we were back there. But this isn't the point of what I'm going to be talking to you about today. So what I want to do is I want to take a look at the addresses, so the number of addresses with Bitcoin, and we're going to take a look at those 1,000 wallets, right? So here we can see a couple of really interesting things, right? They accumulated from March 2020 lows up to the high point of pretty much mid-February 2021, where they then start dumping their bags, and they dumped it pretty heavily. Then you see a really sharp uptake, right? And this was basically the end of February 2022. So if I actually just zoom in on this, just to zoom in a little bit further here, you can see this uptick right here, right? So basically these 1,000 BTC wallets spiked up. They actually pulled back a little bit as they left those wallets and went back onto the exchanges. That's visible from what is going on with the balance of Bitcoin on exchanges, right? So you can see it's a whale game. The whales are pushing the price down. They pulled the price up, right? And we had the $48,000 BTC, and now they're pulling Bitcoin's price back down. It's their objective to basically get as much of the retail money out and transfer the Bitcoin ownership to themselves. That is obviously yet to actually occur, but we can see that basically in February of 2022 there were 2,108 Bitcoin whales, and right now we actually have 2,200 Bitcoin whales. So 100 additional people have accumulated and still own more than 1,000 BTC. There are 2,200 people with more than 1,000 BTC in their wallets, okay? More than 1,000 BTC. Now, if you're going to see this colossal collapse, absolutely massive collapse of Bitcoin, why are they still holding? Why are they not just, dumping it and, running to the hills, right? Because they're going to be able to buy it back much cheaper. Well, the fact of the matter it's actually a lot simpler than most retail investors actually understand, is they cannot simply just drop it on the market. They will never actually be able to get maximum value for their coins. If they are going to sell this, they are going to have to find pockets of liquidity, which means they have to trick, I guess, retail investors to go long or go short on Bitcoin positions, so that they can move the price towards the pocket of liquidity that gets created at the liquidation event. Okay, so the more people that go long, there's a pocket of liquidity that would basically liquidate those particular investors. Okay, that would be lower. That price is usually lower if it's a long position. Now, if there's a short position and you're shorting Bitcoin, then eventually what you'll find is there's a pocket of liquidity higher. So the price of Bitcoin generally gravitates towards that pocket of liquidity, and the transfer of wealth occurs between the retail investor using the leverage positions and the whales accumulating. Really important to understand that. But we can go a little bit deeper than that, okay? Because these are just 1,000 BTC wallets. What about the sharks in the space, right? 100 Bitcoin or more. 100 Bitcoin or more. These, again, they spiked up. Right here, February 2022, and they've continued to hold. They've just traded sideways, a little bit of an uptick, a little bit of a downtick, but for the most part, no major fluctuations. This tells us that sharks in the space are accumulating. They're buying and selling, and they're building their positions. They are not being shaken out of the market. Again, I will emphasize, if a big crash is coming, why are they holding on, and why are they not just exiting their positions ahead of what is to come? Think about it from a logical standpoint. Okay, I think that retail investors are being taken for a ride on multiple different fronts. You're being lied to, tricked to, and basically being, manipulated out of your cryptocurrency. So just be aware that there's many avenues that happens. That is done through leveraged trading. It is also done through influencers who sometimes maybe, are told one piece of information as confidence or in confidence from an inside source maybe, and they go ahead and spill that out, and it spreads like wildfire amongst other YouTubers, and before you know it, you've got yourself a story that we're collapsing down, and actually it all maybe originated just from one hedge fund looking to accumulate more Bitcoin, right? Think about it, follow the money, don't just blindly follow people. So as we come into this, that's obviously your 100 BTC wallets. Now we can go a little deeper. What about the dolphins, right? This is 10 Bitcoin or more. These are, in the grand scheme of things, decent sized fish, but, not in the same league as the whales, or not in the same league as the sharks. But what do we see? This chart is incredibly telling. There's nothing but accumulation going on from February 2022. It's continued. Even to this point, 147,290 people, different wallets with 10 Bitcoin or more. Okay, so we know that even these guys aren't being shaken out of their positions, right? And these are significant positions, right? This is about what, 280,000 Bitcoin or $280,000 worth of Bitcoin or more. So they're decent sized fish. They're not minnows, anyone with dust essentially of Bitcoin. But they aren't being shaken out. They're accumulating. So really think about your positions, think about what's going on, and understand whether this crash is as big as people are making it out to be. Is it as colossal, and is it as urgent as all of these videos and this content is telling you that it is? I'm not saying that any of these channels are bad, by the way, guys. I think, essentially this is telling us that a story has gotten out there, and this fear, doubt, and uncertainty, which should be taken seriously, has reached mainstream level, right, where a lot of people are aware of it. And we should understand, what that means. It means that most retail investors are going to start to succumb to the pressure that comes with selling, okay? And we will probably move up a little bit. We'll probably move back down. And I don't think we're going to be coming down to those low levels. And I went through this previously. Check out my previous Bitcoin videos. There's miscalculations going on with the fibs, and the 1-to-1 ratios aren't exactly where people think they are. Essentially, the 1-to-1 ratio is 22,967. It's not $12,000. If you've got your chart in logarithmic, and you must have your fib in logarithmic, just in here, I've spoken about this before. It comes under style right at the bottom, fib levels based on log scale. If your chart's in log, you absolutely must have your fibs in log. Okay, do that, and you'll actually come up with 22,967, not $12,000. Okay, so make sure you actually use the tools correctly. If you are using a logarithmic. If you're not using logarithmic and you're just on, auto, then, essentially make sure your tools are not in logarithmic, right? It goes both ways. Just make sure you've got it accurately done. So for the most part, we are looking to go down, and this is going to be on the back of retail investors succumbing to that fear, in my opinion. I do think that the psychology of this move is pretty mapped out pretty well. We're looking for completing the fourth wave move up, and then we're looking for the final fifth wave low. Essentially, that completes a 335 corrective move, taking us down into this low of $22,967. And once that is done, we should then be looking for the move upwards. I have this preliminary put in as a 5-wave move, but that could be wrong. I don't know that for certain. That's speculative. But for now, we do know that a move down is highly probable, and I have that scoped out between these $22,967 range. It could potentially come down, fill that historical gap, that $20,000 level. I'm not hopeful on that. I think too many people expect it, and therefore it won't happen. But yeah, keep an eye out on these things. It's very possible still. So yeah, that's kind of this video, guys. I wanted to kind of just do a video that was, I guess, I'll move that out of the way. I just wanted to do a video that kind of covered the noise that is going on in this space and tried to understand that, you know, there's always a narrative behind these things. And it's important that we do our own research, we come to our own conclusions, and that we understand, you know, what's actually going on in this space. Because if there is this urgency for a $12,000 Bitcoin, the whole entire thing is going to collapse down. Why are these whales, you know, still, you know, divvying around? Why are the sharks and the dolphins accumulating and not selling? And where is this selling pressure coming from, right? We know that price action isn't really a measure of market cap. It's really as simple as supply and demand. We see diminishing supply on exchanges, have done since March 2020. So in order for the price to pull back significantly, the demand has to decrease dramatically and the supply has to increase, okay? So with a surplus of supply and diminishing demand for purchasing, the price would fall. And to get down to $12,000, those things have to be extreme, okay? We have to see nobody wanting to buy, or very few people wanting to buy, and we have to see a significant surge of supply, which we are not seeing. We have miners who are giving you options on their Bitcoin, but not actually selling the Bitcoin. You see the dolphins accumulating, the sharks accumulating, the whales playing their games. So just ask those questions, answer them for yourself. I can't answer them for you. I'm not a financial advisor. None of this should be considered financial advice. I'm giving you my thoughts and opinions on the data as I see it, and really just taking it from an analytical, logical perspective. I do not believe that $12,000 or a mega crash is coming. Instead, I think a nice healthy correction down to 22,900 is very probable. Guys, if you found this useful and informative, hit the like button. I really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, why not go ahead and subscribe, tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. With all that said, done, and out of the way, I hope everyone has a fantastic day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.